As summer fades to fall and fall to winter, shorter days and less sunlight can naturally be a mood changer. But for millions, it's a serious mental health concern. How do you distinguish between the winter blues and seasonal affective disorder? And will the pandemic impact the number of cases? Dr. Hannah Hoffman is an assistant professor at Michigan State University, specializing in neurology. Her research program is focused on how light changes affect our lives. Thanks so much for taking the time today, Dr. Hoffman.
Thank you for having me here and share my expertise with you.
What is seasonal affective disorder exactly, or SAD as it is known, and how do we know if it's a case of the winter blues or the more serious disorder?
So SAD is a type of depression. So in order to distinguish SAD from like the winter blues, initially it can actually be difficult because the winter blues can turn into SAD, right? It's all a spectrum. So we will have cases where you have lack of energy, you don't sleep as well maybe, and you don't feel quite as you usually do, right? So that would be the blues. However, if you keep on not getting sufficient light, which we're going to talk about soon, then you can actually progress into this depressive-like state or the true depression. So in order to be considered or diagnosed as a SAD person, you need to have numerous days for numerous months, really, where you have all the symptoms of depression, which is lack of mood, lack of energy. You will have lack of interest in a lot of things. Many people will stop or reduce their social interactions. When you have what we call winter depression, like you can have seasonal affective disorder both in the summer and the winter, because it's depending on the day length, but most people experience it in the winter. Well, in winter depression is often associated with increased eating, specifically foods that we usually say we shouldn't eat too much of, so high sugar, high fat kind of food. So many people who experience that might also gain weight. In addition, due to lack of light and all these disruptive impacts we have in our life, we might also sleep worse. And all this turns into what we call a negative feedback loop. So you just keep on, it keeps on getting worse and worse. And that's one of the difficulties about SAD. It's very progressive. Many people don't realize they have it because it sneaks up on you. And that's actually the reason I study it, because I suffer from SAD. Well, not anymore, because now I know how to prevent it. But the first couple of years I lived in the north, I did have SAD in the winter. And it was my family who told me that I changed. So often the person doesn't know because it just comes so progressively. So it's, it's very difficult because it's very progressive. You might not realize it's coming and you just have this lack of energy and very poor mood.
So what do we know about the numbers of people who are affected by SAD and who is potentially at greatest risk?
That's a really good question. In the US, it's been estimated that approximately 5% of the population will experience some degree of SAD each year. That's a lot of people. But what is very important to consider is where you live, because SAD is, it's driven by the change in day length. If you live down in Florida, you probably won't have SAD, or it's going to be a mild version. However, if you live in the north, let's say you live in New York, Seattle, you might be living in Michigan or in Alaska, the day lengths are significantly shorter, or they might not even have any light in the winter. So up in the north, you can have as many as 20 to 30% of the population who will experience SAD in the winter. A very interesting, and to me, very sad really, thing is that 4 times more women are diagnosed with SAD than men. We do not know why more women experience SAD than men. We know that everyone can get it. No one is safe, if you like. And we don't know what the risk factors really are for developing SAD, but more women will experience it. Most people are diagnosed with SAD like young adults, so around 17, 18 till about 30 years of age. That's when most people get probably diagnosed. However, there are cases of children as young as 5 to 6 years who will experience SAD, and there's not an age. People, when you get older, SAD also occurs in older elderly people. And there has been recent studies looking, especially in retirement homes, at the benefit of light, for this population, because they do not get a lot outside. And I think there's a lot we can do, both for the younger people who they can't control the light environment, right? It's us who are going to decide if they go inside or outside. And the same is true for people who live in retirement homes often. They might not have as much flexibility in when they get out and not. And I think it's our responsibility as a community to really help inform about the benefits of light and help everyone get enough.
Are we able to pinpoint the underlying cause? What does the research say about what's happening in the brain when daylight savings ends and light starts to decrease every day?
So that's a really good question. So actually, the winter depression depends on day length. So although, the change of hour can be very annoying, it's not going to cause that. It's true there's an increased incidence of lack of sleep and not feeling well after our, wintertime change, but it won't cause that. What causes SAD is the shortening in days, like the number of daylight hours we have per day. So that's what is thought to be the underlying cause of SAD, because what happens is when we don't have a lot of light is that, let's say in the summer, we have a lot of light, we get a lot more outdoors than we do in the winter. And all this bright sunlight actually changes how our brain is working. It will promote the production and the release of a lot of different biochemical signals, or what we call neurotransmitters in the brain, one of which most people have heard of. It's called serotonin. It's often, many drugs used for depression targets the serotonergic system. So in the winter, because we don't have so much sun, usually what happens is that, some people, not everyone, right? We will have this change in how your brain works because we don't get enough light to have this high level of serotonin. So that's why your brain actually makes you sad, because there's not enough light. So that's one of the primary causes we think is happening in the brain, because we know there's less serotonin in most patients who experience SAD. But we can't say it's the only underlying cause. But it's very, very common to have a reduced serotonergic, level.
Well, we certainly know the quantity of light is reduced in the fall and winter. What about the quality of light? Can we make the most of that light that we get?
Definitely. So some things that we can actually prevent SAD if you are really good about getting outdoors. Well, maybe except if you live like in Alaska, where there might not be any daylight, or you might only have half an hour. But that's not the majority of the population. If you are very good about getting out in the morning, so in order to prevent SAD, it's really the morning hours that are most beneficial to increase these mood stimulating signals in your brain. So getting out early, so it's important to get up in the morning, right? Get up early, around 7 or 8 a.m. if you can, and get outside. Go for a walk, rake your leaves, go clean the snow off your sidewalk, whatever you want to do. Get outside in the morning. Or if you don't like those kind of activities, do your groceries. Do them before noon, and try to do them when the sun is out. Because of course, on a cloudy day, the quality, as you said, of light is not going to be quite the same on a cloudy day as on a sunny day, because we're really talking about the light intensity here. It's very important in order for it to be, efficient, that it's a bright light. And that's one of the things that this light therapy we can use if we cannot get outside enough. We call them either happy light or light therapy or light boxes, which are, I can actually show you one if you want to see one. It's a light box that will produce what we call high quality light. So it should be at least 10,000 lux. So lux is the unit we measure light in. And you can think about most rooms, for example, where you're sitting right now, the light intensity is probably around 250 to 300 lux. Whereas a very sunny day in the summer might have 50,000 to 100,000 lux. So you can see that the level of intensity of light is very, very different. Most cloudy days are going to be around 2,000 lux maybe outside, which is so much stronger than the light you will experience inside. So using these light boxes, you can have very bright, like these. The magic number is really around 10,000 lux. It's proven in research. That's what we need for about 1 hour in the morning. And you can trick your body to think it's still summer. And this is enough to prevent SAD in almost 80% of people. So it's very, very beneficial.
So a person who is susceptible can actually be proactive and potentially head it off before it even begins.
Yes, and that's definitely what I would recommend. So if you already suspect you have or might suffer from SAD, or that you've been diagnosed by your physician, which I always recommend do speak with your physician if you do have, mood issues in the winter, because it might not be SAD and you might need other kinds of treatments. But if you think it's SAD or you've been diagnosed with SAD, if you know that usually you start to feel sluggish or have a decreased mood around November, start a month ahead of time. Because this, as I said, it's a depression that will sneak up on you, okay? It doesn't happen, you're not happy Friday and you wake up and you're sad Sunday. That's not how this works. It's very slow. So by starting about a month ahead of time, you will never have these symptoms. And that's what I personally have learned to do. And it's really, really working. If you're being good about it, like consistent, getting your light therapy for 1 to 2 hours per day in the morning, 5 to 6 or 7 days per week, as I said, 80% of people will not experience SAD. However, if you're already having symptoms of SAD and you want to come back, you're right, and have your energy back and have your mood back, again, it's not a magic pill we're talking about here. We have to change your neuronal circuits. So it will take time. Once you start your light therapy, you should expect it to take 1, 2, or maybe even 3 weeks before you actually see a result. So it's about being patient. It's not, again, it won't happen overnight that you get it, and it's not going to disappear. And it can be difficult to see the benefit initially, and usually asking someone and say, hey, do you think I'm feeling better? Do I have more energy? Because usually your family and friends will be the first one to actually pick up that you're doing better. So I always enjoy, when people say, oh, it's nice to see all the energy you have, right? And it just confirms that you're really doing things well.
Well, waking up in the dark and spending less time outside are realities for many during the winter months, but this year we'll have added stressors. Some experts believe that the pandemic is actually going to affect numbers and the severity of cases. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a number of studies that have come out during this year with COVID, right? And they have shown that, we all know, living through it, we're all living through this. There's an additional level of stress. We have this forced isolation now. And depending on where you live, let's say you live in a small apartment and you might be in lockdown, right? You can't go out and socialize. And these are all factors that will, promote depression in many people. And we know that people who already have depression in the summer or depression-like symptoms are more likely to experience SAD in the winter. So yes, definitely, we can expect to see more people experience SAD this winter, I would say. And also just because of this new lifestyle, we have to stay more indoors, to reduce social interaction. These are all factors that will contribute to the incidence of people experience at least some degree of SAD. So yes, we will see more.
So what is your opinion on keeping the time consistent? If we didn't spring ahead or fall back, would that make any kind of a difference?
For some people, I think it would. But again, what is really the true key here is day length. So the day length is going to be the same whether or not we move, the clock 1 hour forward or backward. So yes, we will see more, people do feel more depressed after time change, but it's not, as I said, it's not going to cause SAD. It might be annoying for many people, especially when we go to wintertime, that, the sun will set and but yeah, it's not going to cause it. And depending on your work schedule, as I said, it's really important to get out and get morning light. So depending on when you have to be at work, with the time change, for some people it might be easier to get natural light and for some it might not. It's going to be more like a one-to-one basis, whether this is going to benefit them or not.
So for people who are not officially diagnosed, but think that they might be at risk of SAD or lack energy and reduced motivation, what is your best advice for them?
I would definitely encourage everyone who think they might experience SAD, or even people who do not, start early with light treatment, or light therapy as we call it, get more outdoors. And when you think you might, suffer or might develop SAD, definitely start using these light boxes. There are a couple of criteria that is very important that people look out for if they want to use a light box. As I said, it needs to be very bright. It needs to be around 10,000 lux, and it's very important that they have a UV filter. We don't want to do additional retinal damage, to your eyes or to your skin. So those are like the two key things. It needs to be very bright, and we need to have a UV filter. And then we need to use these boxes in the morning. We do not want to use them in the afternoon or the evening, because what happens is that light is regulating a primary hormone in your body called melatonin. Melatonin is only released at night. And if you get all this very strong light in the evening, what happens is that your melatonin levels will go down. And the beauty of melatonin is that it will promote sleep. And depression is associated with poor sleep. So increasing the quality of your sleep is always going to be a good thing. And getting light therapy in the morning, whether or not you have depression, will actually help you get a better sleep-wake rhythm as well. So there's a lot of health benefits to this. Other things people can do would include a healthy lifestyle. You know, think about what you eat. We're not talking about dieting or anything here or being a marathon runner. We're talking about having a healthy habit, eating healthy, getting regular exercise is way more important than many people think. And when we say exercise, it can be a 1-hour walk. It does not need to be swimming or biking for 3 hours. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, for example, going for a walk with a friend, going for a walk with a dog, or whatever you like to do. So there's a lot of things we can do. And in addition, right now where we have all this isolation, think about ways you can develop a social group that you can be with, either through the phone, online, and as I said, you can go for walks outside, right? Because these kind of social groups where you do, for example, a weekly call, and you check in on each other can really help people to stay on track with what, you know, with how you feel needed by others, you will share your own experiences, and this can really help, you know, you get through a long winter where you might feel alone and isolated. And thinking about ways that you can build this kind of support network and help others, we all feel good when we help others, is really underappreciated. It's very, very, very helpful. Whether or not you have depression, but it will help a lot when you have depression to go share and open up to someone you have, you know, that you know will support you. It's very important.
That is great advice. And I would imagine that a vitamin D supplement couldn't hurt either.
That's true. Vitamin D, well, first of all, most people are actually very low in vitamin D. And before you start taking supplements, again, I would really recommend, you know, to get your levels checked. But most people do have low vitamin D, and there's numerous studies that show that supplementing with vitamin D, although it will not cure your depression, it will definitely, at least definitely, in most people, it will help reduce the symptoms, or it will, you know, in combination with light therapy, has been shown to be beneficial in most studies. So additional vitamin D, if anything, will make you feel better. It will not fail you, you know, it will help you.
Dr. Hoffman, thank you for shedding some light on this timely issue. We truly appreciate your insights on NewsPoint 360 today.
Thank you for having me come in.